Alright, so for this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I lit a large room. We're going to be running with one flash on top of the camera, which actually am using a flash bracket with my Godox V1 sitting on top of that flash bracket. Looks like this. And then I'm mobile with my 8200 doing my left and right flash pops, and we do a composite in Photoshop, which I'll show you how we do that. So a couple things that we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at removing some imperfections in carpets. Like so for this realtor, she staged this room, but there was flat carpet marks in the carpet where there was another piece of furniture. Super easy to get rid of, and I'll show you how to do that. And we're also going to be looking at why luminosity mode may not be the best method to go with now. And I'm going to prove to you that using luminosity mode in this situation really didn't fix my color cast issue. Now, I run with lights off, which actually helps me and gives me more accurate color anyway. But in this situation, luminosity mode didn't fix it. But I have a method on how to get more accurate color. And then also, I'm going to show you another little tweak, very simple, but something that I've been starting to do as a final bump additive to give your images that little extra pop. Super simple, but I'm going to share it with you in this video. So let's get into Lightroom and I'll show you how we do this. Okay, so here's a simple ambient one room, nothing too fancy, but we do want to run with multiple flash pops to make lighting this room easier in post, and it doesn't take a whole lot of extra time. So I've already done my my initial bump here. Yep, that's what that looks like. Drop that exposure down a little bit. Let's move to our first flash pop. And you can see that the foreground is lit nice, but then we're also able to light the back of it right there with this image. And we just go over here to light this side. So I'm going to highlight these three and edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. Okay, now that we're in Photoshop, we'll be looking at our ambient layer. That should always be on the top if you took it first, which I recommend just getting your ambient layer out of the way. And so the simplest solution I found to blending these three images together is let's first start out by shutting our ambient layer off. And then we're going to click on our top flash layer, and we're going to come down here and click on this layer mask, and then Command I to invert it. Here is my new super simple solution using your gradient tool over here. Make sure white's selected, and then clicking anywhere in front of the hottest spot of that flash mark. So see how it's the hot spot on the ceiling is going to about right there. Just hold down right there and click somewhere in the middle, and we blend those two flashes super easily, seamlessly together. Now we can introduce back in that ambient light. And I like, for this situation, dropping that opacity to about 50%. And now we can take and just do a layer mask, but don't invert it. Make sure black is selected. Come up here to your brush tool. And then we can, and I'm going to use my left bracket on my keyboard. You have right and left brackets. That makes your brush bigger or smaller. And we're just going to sit here and paint back in our window view. And there we go. Super simple. I am going to change this to luminosity mode. I'm going to show you that it really didn't do a whole lot compared to the normal mode. And I'm going to leave it on luminosity mode for this tutorial. But let's come down here to the bottom image, right click, let's flatten the image. And I've shown this technique in other tutorials, but this is how another method to correcting for color casts. So let's see what happens. We're going to do Command J to duplicate this layer. Come up here to Filter, Blur, and then Average. Now what this is doing is smearing all the colors together to give you an average color. Usually if you have a perfect white balance, it will be middle gray. So let's come down here to our adjustment layers and pick a curves adjustment layer. Use the middle eyedropper right here, and then just click anywhere in the image. And then you can see that what it did was it lifted the blues from your curves chart and then dropped the reds a little bit. And let's see if we toggle this layer 1 off, and if we toggle off and on our curves layer, you can see, look at how yellowish orange that looks. And we shut it off, it gives you back the original, what should be a true even correct white balance middle. As if you were using a gray card, this is what you would get. Now, is it perfect? No. Eyeball it. I believe that if you take your opacity, sometimes 100% is right on the money. But even coming down to like 50%, if you toggle this on and off, it still drastically fixed it. Now remember, we were in luminosity mode and it still didn't do anything. So this is actually I don't even worry about putting the ambient layer in luminosity mode anymore, because when you're starting to shoot like log homes, or you have a lot of shadows or highlights or glare coming off cabinets, whatever, luminosity mode just, to me, causes more problems than it does solutions for me. It might be different for you. Now, I'm not saying I don't use it for every room, bathrooms and white walls and stuff like that, where it's an even lit situation. Yeah, I'll use luminosity mode. Sometimes that can be quicker than going through this process. But if you use a function key and a quick action, this process is just as quick as hitting function F1 or something and getting it done right there. So make sure you're learning how to do functions. I'll have a whole tutorial on that if you need help on that. So let's leave it just as it is, and we'll flatten this image again. Hit OK, because we don't need that layer. That wasn't checked. That's all it was telling us. Now, I'm going to duplicate this layer again, Command J, and let's fix this carpet stain here. If we zoom in a little bit, you can see that there was a furniture marking here on the carpet. Super simple. I love to do the patch tool. If you have a situation like this, draw around it and then just drag it somewhere else and let off. And that's it. We're just making a circle around this one, moving it to a different spot in the carpet to make it blend seamlessly like that. There's a million ways to do the same thing in Photoshop, but I don't know if you can see this in this video, but there's like an orange stain or something on this carpet. Super easy to fix. Just highlight it and then move it to a clean part of the carpet and then let off, and it blends it so well. And then we just Command and then minus sign to back out of that. And so Command plus can zoom you in, and then the minus sign lets you go back out. And look at this, how nice and clean that looks. There's all natural shadows with that ceiling fan. There's natural shadows on the wall. Don't be scared of shadows. I love doing lights off, just using the natural light coming in. That's just my personal preference. And again, talk to your realtor. Make sure they're okay with you doing that. But let's flatten this image and bring it back into Lightroom. Command S to do so. And we are going to do my interior final bump, which really just kind of drops the blacks. And I always have to readjust sometimes the exposure. And you can even either adjust the exposure slider right here, but I like to take in the middle of the histogram up here and just move that, because I like to watch the histogram. That's why I've always been just kind of programmed to use the histogram and move that. So here's a little tip. After you've done your final bump and you bring those blacks down, I like to come down here to the curves layer and just take the bottom layer like here and just kind of pull that down a little bit. And then we can bring the highlights up, kind of make like an S curve. I don't know, it just seems to do a little bit more than, it just gives it a little bit more richness to it. And of course, you gotta play with it so it's not overly processed. I don't like overly processed images like that. There's just one little tweak that I give it a little extra bump there. Make sure to watch this video if you want to see a full tutorial on me demonstrating multiple ways and methods to lighting a space. But click that subscribe button if you want to continue to learn and grow with me in growing your real estate photography business. I'm here to help. Leave me a comment if you have any questions. We'll see you in the next video, guys. Bye-bye.